The following presentation of the Eric McKenna Project is sponsored by no one.
Hello, you're listening to the Eric McKenna Project.
Thanks for doing this.
Of course.
Thank you for being in the inaugural show here at the new studio in Moon Township. I haven't got my sea legs yet. I'm trying to, the ambiance. Now Mandy's now in my head now because she said something sounds different, and it does sound a little different, but we'll figure it out.
You just have to use the roll-off filter when you're done editing.
Oh, listen to that.
I don't even have any idea what that means.
That would be my education at Art Institute, but I don't really use it.
She actually talks like she knows what she's talking about. That's pretty good.
That sounded very smart.
Thank you.
So proud of you, Mandy.
Yeah, we're going to have some fun. Yeah, and so shows resume, which is kind of exciting. After a period of like 5 weeks, we've been off. 6 weeks.
Yeah.
So thanks for doing this. And Kelly is new to the show number 1.
Welcome.
Poppy in my cherry, I love it.
I guess, yeah, that's one way of putting it out there for sure. I'm going to probably need you a little closer to the mic, just a little bit.
How's that?
I need to, maybe 3 to 4 inches away. That's good. You're good.
Pretty close.
That's good. You'll handle it. You can handle it.
Yeah.
I'm sure. So I wanted to get you four together today to talk about a couple things. The first thing is you're all rather active in the business community in different roles and so forth, but I would consider all three of you business folks. Besides being an attorney, you're also a business person. You're an entrepreneur. Well, I think you're all entrepreneurs for that matter. Rocco and I mentioned a little bit on air the other day, and we're limited by radio as to how deeply we can get involved in subjects naturally. I mean, you know that gig. You did that.
I do.
So, yeah. So, we started talking about being fulfilled in your career and what role that should play in creating a new business or being in business for yourself anyways. Rocco, if I understand this correctly, if I am wrong, please make sure you correct me.
I will correct you.
But as I understand you, you are of the belief that if someone is very good at something and they're doing it for somebody else, but they're not happy at their job or happy in that circumstance, but they're good at what they do. Take a plumber, for example, a plumber working for somebody else who's fantastic at what they do. However, they really, I don't know, just don't like their environment, their employer, maybe their pay, whatever it is. Rocco is of the belief that even though, and the other caveat is they hate plumbing. They're really good at it, but they just don't enjoy what they do. They don't enjoy who they work for. They just don't enjoy their job, but man, they're good at it. And people tell them they're good at it. Their boss thinks they're good at it. Rocco is of the belief that it would be wise to encourage somebody to go into business with that field,
well,
to be a plumber.
Okay, but we have to also add the other piece of the question. It was not just telling that person to leave their job. If that person wants to start a business or doesn't want to work for someone, that's what I would encourage them to do. If they don't want to start a business or do something on their own, then I'm not going to make that encouragement or give that encouragement. It is if the person is ready to do something for themselves.
Right. Oh yeah.
Then,
so they have the entrepreneurial bug. They have the entrepreneurial bug.
Yes.
And because they know they just don't want to be an employee anymore. They don't like plumbing, although they're very good at it. I'm of the belief that I don't know how wise it is to encourage people to go into a field, regardless of their skill set, if that field does not bring them joy, regardless of the financial rewards that could be there for them. So that's kind of like a small difference in our viewpoint. But I'd like to open up today and talk about like that is how important is fulfillment in one's career, fulfillment in one's vocation, their activity, their daily activity, and how the lack of fulfillment might bleed and affect other aspects of their lifestyle and their family and so forth. What kind of weight do you put in being fulfilled or quote unquote happy at the work that you do? And since you're in chair 2, we're starting right with you.
Yeah, no, that's great. I'm totally on board with you, Eric. Sorry, Rocco.
That's fine.
Actually, I can relate to that personally. When I was in school, I'm really good with numbers. And everyone kept saying you should be majoring in accounting. So I did. I like people. I like numbers. That's what everyone kept saying that was about. And I did fantastic. I mean, I was 100% on everything I did, all A's, and started to go into that field. I hate accounting. That was the worst thing I could have ever done. And I, took a hard left, and I was like, yep, nope, I don't care how much I am good at this. And it's really easy for me. This is a cakewalk. I could have did that the rest of my life. But it's not fun. It wasn't fun for me. I didn't get any enjoyment out of it. It wasn't fulfilling, and I was miserable. So I completely changed what I was doing, and I ended up in a completely different field, learned my way through it. Sure, I still use numbers. I still do that,
Right.
But
Right.
you always need that in business, obviously.
Right.
But I love what I do now. I've been loving what I've been doing since I became a complete entrepreneur. It has its ups and downs and challenges, but I think that is what fills me, is the challenges, and day to day having something completely different and knowing that it's going to give me fulfillment that way. I'm so much happier.
Okay, that's your. I understand that's your view based upon your experience, but do you also feel that in every instance? Do you take that as a mantra because it worked for you? Would you say that you would also recommend only working in fields that bring you a certain level of joy?
I think it depends on the person, because some people can do that and some people can't. Some people just want to put their head down and get through their work day, come home, and they're fine with that. They work for their paycheck, and that's what brings them joy, is just being able to afford what they have and provide for their families. And they can, at the end of the day, at 5 o'clock, they can shut that off and they're fine. And some people can't. Some people just want to do what they want to do and be happy, and their work is what brings them joy.
I'm going to go to Mandi before we end up with you.
Yeah.
Big boy.
Hey.
Hey.
Well, just a comment. So it took me a long time to figure out that I wasn't corporate America. I spent a lot of my 20s thinking you get out of school. You go and you get a corporate job. It has, you work 9 to 5. You do the thing like everybody else. And then it just didn't work. I didn't like it. I wasn't fulfilled. I felt boxed in. And that's kind of what led me to do what I do. Now, however, I am a high D. We've talked about DISC before. I'm a high D, high I. And, basically, I'm not supposed to be in that role necessarily. There's people who love corporate America or love their day-to-day paychecks. They can go to work. They want the same schedule. That gives them joy to have that comfort. Whereas me, I'm like, oh my gosh, I need to be out. I need to be doing all the things that I love, which I love getting my hands in all different places. So, I would say that for me, joy in my work is doing, finding the next thing, having the next idea, working toward it, working toward my, my chamber job, working toward my marketing company, working at Rocco's. Like I'm working at all different places because I love doing it. And it's a lot of the same things, but that's what brings me joy.
So you would recommend that someone go into a field, if I'm hearing you correctly,
Sure.
that gives fulfillment or / joy, as opposed to starting a business because they're good at it and there's money opportunity there, but if it really wasn't what they wanted to do with their life.
I mean, like, if somebody isn't fulfilled, and I understand there's a paycheck involved. So there is, and I spoke with someone, I'm going to mention Jeff Hansher. How much time are we wasting a day not doing what we could be doing toward our future? Like how many 20 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour that we're sitting on Netflix, we're sitting on TikTok, and we're not doing what's going to lead to our next thing.
Got it.
If this plumber's not happy, you have that 20 minutes to 30 minutes a day, whether it's school, whether it's creating your own business, whether it's just getting a new job. You have that little pocket of time where you can still do the day-to-day and the things you like, but lead to where you're going. Like, think of the future. Or else you're still going to be sitting there with this job that you don't like in 5 years going, well, I still don't really like this job, so I'm just going to sit here for the rest of my life. I think that you should move towards something you want to do, and if you're stuck, it's not going to make you happy every day, even if it's a good paycheck.
Okay.
Well, I think we're framing the question a little bit off.
Okay.
So the original question, and let's kind of circle back to that, was guy's a plumber, really good at being a plumber, doesn't like being a plumber, wants to start a business, doesn't know what to do. The question was, would I encourage that person to start a plumbing business or do something else? My statement was, if the person does not want to work for that employer, is really good at plumbing, doesn't like it, and wants to start a business, start what you're good at. Use that as the bridge to figure out what the next thing is. Because if you're like I use myself as an example. When I was in corporate America, I did not love the practice of law. I made good money. It was a great job, but I did not love the practice of law. When I started my own firm, I absolutely love the practice of law now. I fell back in love with my profession by being in a different environment. And that's where I think we're kind of talking about two different things. I want to make sure we're framing this correctly, because the question is, if you are miserable with your employer and you want to start a business but don't know what to do, I would encourage that person to do what you're good at. Start there,
If
and
they
then figure
want
it.
to run their own business.
Correct. Correct. If they don't want to start their own business, then stay where you are until you figure it out. But if you absolutely want to leave your employer and want to start a business but don't know what that is yet, do what you know. Do what you're good at. That at least bridges the gap to give you the financial kind of cushion to allow you to do the next thing. That was my whole take on that. So let's make sure we're framing this correctly.
I understand.
I think you guys had a previous conversation
We
before
did.
the show that we're not aware of.
We discussed
Not
this
at all.
yesterday on air. we had a discussion yesterday on our radio show about this, and it's a great discussion because I think we're all talking about different things. I think there is a level of fulfillment you have to have in your career. I truly believe that, because what's the point of doing something if you're not fulfilled? But you can't be fulfilled necessarily day one. There's a process to go through.
Right. 100%.
That's where I was going.
On the broader context, though, and this will be, we're roughly in the same demographic. I'm a little older than y'all, but essentially
a little,
very little, just a couple years,
right?
Couple years. But I say that because it'll provide context. So, as I'm sure all of you probably, grew up in an environment where the mentality was, you're not going, it's work. You're not probably going to like what you do for a living. There's a possibility you might not like what you do for a living, especially when you're younger, right? So you learn the concept of work, and then maybe with the hope that down the line you go to school or you find avenues that bring you fulfillment. Fulfillment wasn't at the top of the list when you were young, right? I'm not sure today, and I'm not saying it's right or wrong. We'll talk about that. But I'm not sure today that's the case. I think fulfillment has been elevated to almost near the top, or at the top in some instances, as the driver for what someone decides to do with their vocation at a very early age. Would you agree or would you not agree? And if you do agree, do you think that was done, maybe propelled by the internet? Open discussion.
Well, that's a good question, because I think yes and yes. So yes, I think fulfillment is a thing that people are putting in the forefront of their career path, so to speak. And I do think the internet was a big part of that, right?
Okay.
People see these different lifestyles out there. They think they can have more, but the big disconnect, and we've talked about this many times in the past, is people don't understand the work it takes in the background to actually find a career that is fulfilling. It's not just like you pick something and you're fulfilled. To get to where I did with this firm, I've worked 7 days a week for the past 20 years. To finally get to a point where I am, where I feel completely fulfilled and love what I do. Right. I don't think people connect the two. To be fulfilled in something you're doing takes a level of work and effort that people can't quite comprehend in the beginning. And I think that's my position. I mean, maybe you guys all disagree, but I think people think about this fulfillment in a career as one thing, but aren't necessarily willing or even understand the level of effort it's going to take to actually be fulfilled.
It is a high level of concentration, and
Yes.
like you're cooking dinner and thinking of your next idea or your next thing that you have to do. You're taking notes when you're at a stoplight. You're, you know, it's constant wanting to build it. And I think a lot of people are like, yeah, I don't have that kind of patience.
Yeah, right,
So-
right. That's exactly right.
So you have to really, really want it, and
Yes.
to get to the place where you can run a business or do what you want to do and be fulfilled and get the paycheck. And that's, you know, you have to get both of those because you're not going to be fulfilled at home if you're like, you know, worried about getting toilet paper at the end of the month. So.
Right. Absolutely.
Well, I have a friend, she's in corporate America, and she has been since she graduated from college. And it's Monday through Friday. She's done at 5 o'clock. She turns everything off, and she has got the weekend. And I'm like, I don't know what that's like. But I don't think I want to know what that's like
Right.
either.
Yeah, no.
She can actually turn her brain off and go and do something. And then Monday morning, she turns it back on. I'm like, but she hates her job. Every morning she wakes up hating her job.
Because it's a job.
Yes. And she hates everything about it. She hates her calendar. She gets up and she shows me her calendar, and I'm like, it's a nightmare. I don't want to see your calendar. I'm sure you don't want to see it. She has no control over her life at all from 8 till 5, and it's horrible. And she sits on calls, and I'm like, she'll talk to me, and I said, what are you doing? She's like, I'm on a call. I'm like, what are you learning? She's like, I already know everything that they're talking about. I'm like,
Video off, audio off.
I'm like, okay. And then she'll be, I'm like, what are you doing? I'm at the grocery store. I'm like, are you working today? She's like, yeah, I'm on a call right now. I'm like, okay. So that is not fulfilling to me to have a life like that. But she does it for the paycheck. She's got kids. She's got a mortgage. That's all she's doing it for. But she hates her life as far as it is Monday through Friday. And that's not something that I would ever want to do. And she keeps saying, I want to leave this, but I don't know what I want to do. I don't know what I love at this point because she's been in corporate America for so long. And I said, well, that's the first step. Do not quit your job yet. Do not quit it. You have to have a nest egg. You have to know what you want to do. And then you need to plan for it first. Don't just jump. Don't jump right now. But yeah.
We all, I mean, I'm assuming all of us have had 9 to 5 jobs, right? Before we set out on our own gig. And
They're stupid.
I
don't like them.
You know what? I just got I used to get very depressed on Sunday nights. I just hated Sunday nights. And then even when I got into sales, I was still working for an organization, you know, and I still had a Monday morning sales meeting, right? And no matter how good you were doing, you still didn't want to go. But then I remember starting my own business and then like sitting at home with all my work done for the week, nothing to do, and it's Sunday night, and I'm like, wow, I'm not really depressed anymore. So I mean, it was a huge eye opener for me the first week going from corporate to being out on my own. I just did, and maybe it sounds like silly, but that Sunday night depression, man, it was a thing in my life. And it was so good just to get rid of that right away. And then I realized that all of a sudden that there's no such thing as weekends anymore.
Yeah, exactly. That's the big
especially
difference.
in real estate, there's never any weekends. There's never any true weekends that are yours. You know, so and that's the price, and that's Rocco and I talked about on the show again. And I want to bring it up are they willing to do what it takes in regards to amount of effort and work. And you know, the best training for my entrepreneurial journey was the 9 to 5 that I had. I don't know if I would have been disciplined enough coming out of, you know, a college environment or coming out of high school and maybe a parent handing a business to me. I don't know if I would have been disciplined enough and even remotely understand what it takes just to do the bare minimum, which is kind of 40 hours.
Yeah.
You know, in a 9 to 5 circumstance.
Well, I think one thing you said there's important is discipline, right? There's a discipline that you have to understand and have to, you know, to kind of do this thing called entrepreneurship and find this fulfilling career. And I think that's another struggle people have. Most people aren't disciplined. They're not disciplined enough to do it. And that's why that's why they get frustrated. That's why they fell in business, because I truly believe if you are disciplined enough to do what it takes to succeed, you can be successful in anything you choose.
Okay.
I truly believe that. But most people aren't willing to do all the steps it takes. Like, there are certain things that you just have to do every day. no matter what. And yeah, you might not like, there are plenty of things I do every day. I'm like, I fucking hate this. Like, it's just stuff, but I have to do it because it's the minutia. It's the stuff that keeps the firm running, that making sure I'm being efficient and doing certain things and bringing in business, but managing the business. There are just certain things I don't like to do, but I have to do. And there's just a discipline. Like, I will leave here and go to the office and do things to prepare for next week and create my list and look at my schedule. Like, those are things I have to do. And people, I think, when they go into this journey, and where the frustration comes in is when they don't, one, realize the effort it takes, and two, have the discipline to put in that effort or even understand what needs to be done. And I think that's where people go sideways in business, in entrepreneurship. And like the people, and like to your friend that's in corporate America, they're doing it for the paycheck. But I think people like that, not saying her, but other people I know, they have this fear, the fear of the unknown. So they're just, it's a safe bet. Let me just stay where I am. Even though I know I'm going to be fulfilled over here, I kind of know what I want to do, but it's scary. And I don't, and people I think need to really look in the mirror and say, do I have what it takes? Because not everybody's cut out to do it. You may find something you really want to do and love to do, but are you cut out to actually do it and put in the 7 days a week? I don't turn it off ever. There's never a point in time where I can go home and be like, you know what, I'm done for the day. I don't have to think about anything. My brain's constantly going until I fall asleep at night. You have to be very aware of what you're capable of, and can you do that? And that's an important piece people need to understand.
Mm-hmm. And, you know, I look around and I'm always looking for opportunities or wherever I am in whichever job I'm doing. But every Sunday night, I do social media management through my company, my marketing company. So every Sunday night, I sit there and I have a scheduler and I create all the posts and I schedule all the posts and I grumble and I groan. And so I do have the Sunday night blues. And I'm like,
you still have them, eh?
You know, and,
can you turn my volume down on there? Do you know which one I should be one? That's good. Perfect. Thanks. Sorry. Yeah.
But that has to be my schedule because on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, I have, you know, certain things I'm doing. I'm going to the Cozza Law Group on Thursdays, Fridays, and I have this schedule of, you know, this exact schedule that I follow.
Right.
However, if I'm not doing, and I don't have to do these social media posts on Sunday nights, if I don't do them, that means every night of the week I'm doing them, or every morning I'm trying to fit them in, or, you know, and it throws my whole life off instead of me being relaxed all week long.
Got it.
And it's all running and up and happy and the world is going well. Instead, I'm like, oh my gosh, I gotta get that at like noon when I'm on my lunch break, or I'm sitting in the line at Wendy. You know, it stresses me out. So I have to be super disciplined in the time management that I have in the positions that I have, because there is no extra time in the day. I wish I could have an extra day a week or two to get more stuff done. But you do have to find pockets in order to get even more done and keep going, because you have to look toward the future 5 years down.
It's got to be a tough balance, though. I mean, like with children, you know, like I have college age kids. You're at college age?
High school and college.
Yeah, and you're not quite there yet.
I got the tights.
You got a ways to go. But that, you know, how do you, I mean, how do you tell young folks to keep the dream of what they love and the passions they have, but also understand that, you know, if those opportunities aren't there from the beginning, you're going to have to find something early on. Like, how do you, you know, it's a struggle. It's a struggle.
Yeah. That's a good question.
From a motivation
Just don't give them any money and be like, you're on your own.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's the school of hard knocks. That can work.
Yeah.
I went there.
Yeah.
I mean, but
Campbell's soup.
I mean, teaching kids how to, that's a hard question, because I think every kid's different, right? And you kind of got to understand the child. You know, I look at my kids, you know, I have a son and 2 daughters, and I look at, you know, my goal with them is to instill in them work effort.
Okay.
You know, like the effort it takes to do something, and work ethic, and being able to, you know, understand that whatever they want in life, they can have if they're willing to do what it takes.
Right.
And they may not be, that's a choice. There's a trade-off for everything. If you want something more, you have to do something more, and trying to get them to understand that if you want to live a certain way, or have a certain life, or be a certain thing, there's a trade-off you have to give to get that. And that's my sole goal as a parent, is to teach them that, show them that, and be the example.
Okay.
To let them know that, hey, I've built what I've built because I've made trade-offs.
Okay.
And I was willing to do that. And there's a certain level that the kids need to understand. And as they get older, I think they understand it more. Like my son's in college now. Like, he understands work ethic. He understands the effort it takes to do what he wants to do to be successful. Like, he's doing very well in college. He's thinking about double majoring. He's thinking about going to law school. Like, he understands these things now. But I've been trying to beat that into his head since he was a little kid. Like, you've got to outwork everybody. Hard work beats talent all the time. It's just kind of, and that's how I look at as a parent. Like, that's what I try and instill. And whatever my kids become, they become, as long as I show them that path and give them that formula. That's how I look at it.
Yeah, I think foundation with your kids is completely crucial. My kids are polar opposites. From the way they look, the way they speak, everything that they even think about. My son's in college right now. He has a nonprofit. He's had it since he was 14. He's type A. He is a neat freak, which I absolutely love about him. Not saying that I am, but I absolutely love that about him. My daughter is completely creative. She can draw, she can paint, she loves that. I can't even begin to go into her room without getting an eye twitch. It's so messy. And I walk in and I'm just like, oh my gosh, like, is there something living down here? What is that smell? And it was the same room that my son had. And I'm like, it's a completely different part of the house now. I don't even know. But she does not want any parts of college, and that's fine with me.
Yeah.
So we're looking into trade schools for her, and that's what she really wants to do. But I've also been taking her to any networking groups that are appropriate for her to go to, or events, because I want her to see other successful females doing what they love, and really reaching out to them and having her almost intern that underneath them. So when we do headshot sessions, she wants to do hair and makeup, and she wants to do photography. It's perfect for her to be on those days. Yeah. So that's like a day where she gets to go and really see it. And I'm like, it's not all fun and games. When you're looking at Instagram and you're looking at TikToks, that's not necessarily real life. Social media is a facade. So I don't want her to look at that and say, oh, I can do this and I can be that person in within a day or two. I want her to see the grind that these other ladies are going through, and that's got to
be hard, though. It's the social media lure, just the.
I couldn't imagine.
Yeah, and having a daughter and a teenage daughter is.
Oh, I know.
Yeah, especially when they want to go into that field. But I mean, I don't even want her watching like any kind of Kardashian anything.
There was, I think my daughter for a small period of time was going to go into some kind of social media influencer program at some college.
Okay.
And I didn't poo-poo it. I definitely raised my eyebrows, though, and I will be. I'm very glad that she's no longer interested in doing that. But I didn't even know it was a thing.
It is a thing now. Yeah. The world has changed, man. The world has changed.
I get it. And then I know I don't look. I made a career on when the internet was young, online selling a product. I get it. What I don't get is the illusion of bullshit that is out there that they have to wade through. That's the
They're
thing.
definitely going to have a different mindset than we are. I mean, completely.
Yeah, I don't know that being an influencer is exactly a skill. I'm trying to teach, my daughter a skill that's going to last for a long time, not a fad. And that's almost what that is, because you can only be an influencer of something for long.
But you do need skills to do that.
Yeah.
Yes. Like sales skills, presentation skills. Yeah, a certain amount. But you'd hate to have them all catered to that one thing, and then 3 years from now, the web changes and it's something else.
Well, and I think the other thing people don't realize is these influencers, what you see online is 10% of what they actually do. The actual content creation, the thing that the team of people they have around, the successful influencers, it's a full-time profession.
Right.
It takes a lot of work.
It does. It's not just something, and that's where I think there is a disconnect. Because look, influencers is a whole different, topic, but I think the good ones have figured something out. Okay. Like they figured out how to sell and market, how to create content. Like I see stuff that I'm like, I could not do that. I couldn't come up with that creative stuff. That's why they are in that position. So right. I think, I don't want to poo-poo it, so to speak, to use your term.
That's a good term.
It's a good term.
Great term,
You know,
guys.
do I want to encourage my kids to be influencers? No, that's not, you know, I want to encourage my kids, to your point, to have skills. Do I think they can have a skill set that could translate into being some sort of influencer? Sure.
Got it.
I think there are skills that are involved in that. Like to your point, presentation skills, marketing, sales,
right?
How to understand an audience, how to understand who you're marketing to.
And today I have little kids.
Yeah.
And today I just had one of I think a couple years ago, my older son, he's 6 now, so he was 4. Mm-hmm. He went around taking photos of like everything in the room, from the dog to like the door, whatever, like my mom. And so what I did with it is I took all these photos, put them into a slideshow for him, and then labeled them like real estate photography, wildlife photography, and kind of showed him like, if maybe this is what you want to do.
Yeah, right.
Maybe he's like putting together foods. I'm like, here's what a chef would do. And like trying to educate him through what he's getting involved in. I know he really wants to be like an artist right now. And so I'm like, an artist who owns a studio that manages a business, right? You know, and I throw that in there. But, he's very creative. The little one is my neat freak. He's always cleaning and organizing, and things are in particular order. So they'll be completely different as they grow up. But it's, I don't mind whatever they want to do, but I want to encourage them, do more with it. Don't just think inside the box. And like these influencers, they're coming up with something creative with it. They're using it to build their brand. And I'm not saying they should do that, but think of what you can do with even little kids to say, here's what's coming up, and you got to be on your A game from a little young age.
I mean, social media is not going anywhere. Let's just be honest. Like, it is Web 3.0. It's going to be here, and it'll be here until the 4 of us are no longer on this planet.
Rocco, let me get you right straight. As opposed to, I think why you sound like you're in a box is because you're over here like this.
Oh man,
I need you right in front of that.
I'm in front of it now.
Yeah,
is that better?
Go. Yeah, perfect, brother. Oh man, we're relearning here. It's all new.
Technical bullshit, man.
It really isn't new. It's the same goddamn shit I have down the airplane.
I feel like it's a little bit different. The mic's blue, so it's throwing me off a little bit. It's throwing me off.
Yeah, but anyways, not to interrupt you.
No, I just think that social media is not going anywhere. It's going to be here, and I think I hate to. I don't want to encourage my kids to be on social media, but they, my oldest daughter is. They have to understand what it is, because that's gonna impact their lives. Like, it's gonna be part of their business and part of their professional lives. Like, it's only becoming a bigger part of the world.
Correct.
So I think we can't. We have to monitor what our kids do. We have to make sure it is appropriate. We have to ensure they are safe on social media. Mm-hmm. However, I don't want to be that parent that says you keep them shielded from it, because it is a part of the world. Yeah. You have to understand it, what the platforms do, the power they have, how to utilize them correctly, and what not to do on them. Right. That's the other thing. But I think that's something that, we have to start understanding, our generations, with the kids coming up, that it's just going to be here and it's not going to go anywhere.
I want to turn the conversation to college and how college is positioned in society today. And we'll talk a little bit about what your thoughts are, whether it's still needed, does it serve a function. I would think we'd all would agree that certainly medical school and engineering school and the specialized professions, that you have to have that kind of training. But your more generalized degrees, your communications degrees, your management and marketing degrees, your business administration degrees, those things like that. It's tough not to think back in my life where I didn't go to college. I basically just was lazy, didn't like it, had enough of high school, and just kind of went to please my parents and massively flunked out. But I will tell you, a positive came from it, and a negative came from it. Everything I did from that moment on in the corporate world was harder. It was harder to get the job initially. It was harder to get the next job and the next job, and then get promoted within. It was always requiring me to work harder or to try to outdo my coworkers, degreed folks. And that was tough. that was not the easiest road to go. Now, again, a lot of it has to do with the era I'm talking about. The economy wasn't that swift early on and so forth. But that was the tough part. The benefit was that I needed to bring an amount of hard work and awareness to my pathway that it was just required to get there. And that set me up pretty good with disciplines and things like that to go to the next level of my life, which was entrepreneurship. So not having a degree gave me that little bit of edge, attack mode, so to speak, to go out there and do it, But would I want either one of my two kids to make the option either way? Well, yeah, they're going to do whatever they want, and I'm going to love them the same regardless of their decisions, but I'm happy both of them are going for the simple reason that I think it's a valuable ticket. Even today, it still is a valuable ticket to give you a leap ahead of those interviewing for a position right out the gate that don't have the paper. So it's almost like it's an entry ticket even to get the stupid interview. Now, maybe not in 2022, the climate we're in, but generally the past 20 years, I still believe that it's a proof to an employer that you can accomplish something. And I think that's all business degrees, quite frankly, that's all they ever were. And I still think they're valid today for that reason. Do I think they're needed? Probably not. Do I think that they're extremely overpriced? Absolutely. And that's part of the discussion we can have. But my take on it, and I'll give it to you right out of the gate, is I think that they do show employers it's an accomplishment that you can stick to something and accomplish something. I think it's also, for a lot of kids too, I think it can be a huge area of maturity of accomplishing something over an extended period of time and taking that confidence into the world. That's just my thoughts on college.
I mean, I loved going to college. I thought it was a great experience. IUP, I'm going to say that right now.
Party school.
It was.
Party school.
But I was also very focused. I was probably I was an English major, so I had to turn in papers. I couldn't just take a test and run off and do what I wanted. I had to sit in the library. I had to go to the back stacks, which kids don't have to do, which makes me so furious. Because I would walk up from the downstairs, be the only person down there with 18 books stacked up to find this one line of periodical.
You were that girl.
I was. And I'm sitting up there with all these books, trying to write these papers and find all this stuff. But I loved it. I loved going to school there, and I loved my program. But do I think there's a giant shift about to happen in schools? Absolutely. So many schools, especially these kids who went through COVID, they've been taught online. There's online degrees now through the major universities. You're not paying as much. You're not paying for housing. You're not paying for food. You're not. And I think there is going to be this movement online, which, is sad for me because I experienced college, but these kids don't know that world. I think you're going to see a big change in some schools, shaping what they're going to do next, because it has to change. I think it's going to be different for each kid. But I also think trades will pick up too. I think going to school, not having that big student loan debt. I just paid my second school off. I went back at 26. I just paid that off now. I almost said my age, which I'm not going to. And 31. I would love to go to school again. I'd love to be a doctor. I would love to be a professor and teach English and teach marketing. But I don't want that price tag myself. I don't want to go to school and pay it again. I just got done. I couldn't imagine doing it.
Well, it's ridiculously priced right now.
So I think that's going to be the big game changer, especially with online schooling becoming so prevalent. I think that there'll be a shift. Everybody's going to be at home doing their studies and even getting a job then and doing it at night.
All right, so right out of high school, my dad went to IUP.
It's a good school.
So the only school I was allowed to apply to was IUP, because that was the school I had to go to. So I did. So I went for a year.
I know that plan. You were on the same plan I was on.
In fact, I think I actually attended classes for a semester, but I went for a full year.
I have four people in my family who are IUP grads.
Yeah, wow.
And my cousin, I won't say his name, is going to be heading there in the fall. So,
well, okay. I thoroughly enjoyed my first year there. It was a good time.
A lot of people did.
I learned a lot, not in the books, but I learned a lot that year. And then I took a very long break from from college because I wasn't ready for it. I was 17 when I went to college.
Yeah, me too.
I wasn't mature enough to be there. I didn't know what I wanted to do. My dad said, you're going to go in business administration, and that's not what I wanted to do.
I feel your pain.
So I took a break, and I was like, I'm going to find myself. I mean, I didn't go to Europe and start hiking, but, I did just take some time off just to see what I really wanted to do. When I did go back and I was ready, I went to Penn State. But I also took all my classes online. Because at that time I had kids, I was married.
Right.
I didn't have the time, and I was working then too.
Got it.
So having that experience of having online classes actually really helped me with the kids whenever they were going through COVID, because it helped me to be able to explain to them how you study online, how you have to have discipline, because not all the time that they had to be exactly online at a certain time. It's difficult to take online classes when you have a lot of other environmental things that are coming into play. So yeah, I think definitely more and more the schools are doing online. It has benefits, but it also has some negatives to it as well. I mean, it did take me a little bit of extra time because of my situation to get my degree, but I do think it did open certain doors that I wouldn't have had the opportunity to walk through had I not had that degree.
Right on.
And I mean, I did obviously learn a lot as well, and I do use a lot of what I had, but I think it's going to definitely have a shift. Now my son is in college now, in classes, but he also wants to be a herpetologist.
What's that?
It's the study of reptiles.
Oh, no shit.
Yeah. So he has to have his classes in person. I mean, he's studying, all kinds of cold-blooded friends, as he calls them.
Right.
He has his nonprofit, and that's what he does. He takes in reptiles, but he's studying in school. But he also does internships with the zoo. Now he has partnerships with Animal Friends and partnerships with the zoo. So he's doing things that are hands-on there, in class. He does have some online classes, but most of them are in the physical buildings.
Yeah, got it.
So I
So
think
it's like work study.
Yeah. I mean, sort of, but I mean, he's been volunteering at the zoo since he was 15, since they would let him.
Wow.
And now he's a docent there and then a volunteer. I mean, he's going to end up having a job there, and now he's talking about moving down south because that's, where the jobs are for this, but...
For the reptiles?
That's where all the snakes are.
That's where they are.
Where the Gila monsters are?
Yes. So do you remember when all the alligators were here and the and they actually called him to come in and take a look see what was going on.
That's crazy.
I mean, there's not a lot of that opportunity here. So, but
I didn't know there was I guess there's niche fields in the niche fields. In
Niche.
Niche.
Get your words
I say
straight, boy.
both.
Niche.
I say both.
But he found his passion really early in life. God
Right.
love him. I mean, and he's going for it 100%. And I mean, that's wonderful. I know I never had the opportunity to really understand what I wanted and go for it, and he has. And that's wonderful for him.
Yeah.
College for Rocco.
I think that
This is a great conversation.
well, the system's broken. Let's just be honest. The education system's broken in this country. I look at where I went to college. It's almost 3 times the cost, and it's the same education. So how do you justify an increase of almost 3x in 20 years? It's insane. I believe, when my son was, considering going to college, I told him, I said, look, and his mother and I had a differing opinion on college. I said, go to college for a few reasons. If you're going to do something like I did, law school, doctor, engineer, where you need the degree to get the advanced degree. It's a rite of passage, it's a stepping stone.
I get that.
Or if you want to have the experience, right? There's an experience to that. Don't go just to get a degree. Don't go and say, I'm going to major in business. I'd rather you take time off, start a business. You'll learn more doing that than you will in 4 years of higher education.
100%.
I think, and I disagree on the online courses. Like I think that's causing problems in this country because this generation coming out that have been taught online do not know how to socialize, do not know how to interact, and I think that's going to create a huge problem that we haven't seen yet. I think it's something that's coming that as these kids kind of transition into the workforce that were solely taught online or learned online and didn't have that social interaction, I think the business world is going to feel that. Because I know with college, to me, it was the social aspect of it was where I took the most, because I have a psychology degree, which is okay, great, but I didn't really learn much, and I went to law school. What I got from college was how to interact with different people, how to navigate social situations, how to deal with human interaction. That's what that 4 years of leaving my hometown, going to a school with completely new people, developing new relationships, which now have become lifelong relationships. That's the benefit I got from college. And I think if you look at college that way, and that's one of the things you want to take from an education, that makes sense. But I believe, don't just go to college to go to college. Because I don't think it matters as much as it used to. Like certain positions, like if I hire a lawyer, right, they have to have a law degree.
Right.
If I hire someone else, they may or may not need a college degree.
Yeah,
and
you
just
hired
because,
an English major. So.
Right. Well, but to your point, like you said, I disagree with the point you said. It shows they've accomplished something.
Okay.
Because sometimes it's just you pay to accomplish it. Like if someone has a degree from just a university and they did okay, what does that show me as an employer?
Well, that's why the grade point average didn't matter, right?
Yeah, but does it? I mean, because
I don't know.
I mean, okay, if someone has a 3.5 or a 3.9, like how do I judge those people against one another?
Okay.
What I don't know the coursework. I can look at school rankings, but I just think you got to look at the person and the
and the interviews.
Yeah, like it's not like I'm not going to just discount someone because they don't have a degree. And I don't believe having a degree shows me, well, they can accomplish something that the person with the degree can't accomplish.
I see what you're saying.
So I know people that just went to school to go to school and they paid and they got a degree.
And my whole thing is, so like your son, I went to school for English. I started writing in what grade was that? 4th grade. I had a teacher and she was amazing. And I started taking writing courses afterward. I wanted to be a creative writer. Mm-hmm. In 5th grade, I took courses. In 6th grade, I took courses. In 7th grade, I took courses. 8th and 9th, I really didn't take courses. But anyway, I always wrote. I wanted to be a creative writer. And then it transitioned into high school as I wanted to write for a magazine. And so I went to IUP as an English major to continue on. Mm-hmm. And it ended up that the English degree that I took and the classes I took, it gave me analytics. Like I sat in these classes, we read literature. That's all we did was read these enormous books and analyze it to both good and bad lanes. I mean, it was amazing, but that has carried me on through all of my different things. Now, coming out of school, I was like, well, I don't know what to do with this English major other than write for a magazine. Like, that's what I was going to do. So it didn't make sense till later when my future was, but it came in such handy for anything. And just presenting myself as an English major, being analytical and having that background was actually very helpful, even though I thought it wasn't as helpful getting in. People, so it's different.
I think it's absolutely ridiculous what they're charging for higher education across the board. I think
it's stupid.
I think
stupid amounts of money.
The government student loan program is completely broke, wrought with fraud and manipulation.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the system needs rebuilt from the ground up. What the pandemic showed us, though, is that online schooling, done correctly, sometimes works, sometimes it doesn't, but it is something that's here to stay. I'm not saying it's going to go immediately replace in-school sessions. I hope it doesn't, but it's now here in some capacity, and it's going to be used. And there is a huge cost benefit. I mean, I got friends that have friends at Carnegie Mellon, and they, during the pandemic, some of their kids were sent home naturally, and they were taking their courses online. And some of these teachers were mailing it in, the professors, mailing it in to the point where the classes were taped and pre-recorded.
Yeah.
So you're paying all this money for that school, and now you're watching what essentially is kind of like a movie, right? And that's what they paid money for. Big money.
And that's a very expensive education to pay for pre-recorded classes.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't make any sense to me. Like that is it's a whole other topic. And I think that, to your point with the government, the student loans, that system is completely destroyed because colleges charge what they charge because they can get the money because I can get the money as a student to pay for it.
Right.
Think about that. Like when I was going to law school, they gave me a bunch of money to pay for law school. Like, okay. Like, that's great, but it's like, think about that. Like, and now they've charged even more, and student loans are the only thing you can't discharge in bankruptcy.
Interesting.
It's the only debt you can't discharge in bankruptcy.
Really?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yes.
there's some people that are just planning to take that to their grave. I mean, just because the word student is before the word loan doesn't make it any less detrimental to everything
Right.
you do. There's people that have so much in student loans, they can't qualify for a mortgage. They can't get a car. Sometimes
Yeah.
they can't get a job. I mean, just because you get an education from your student loan, sometimes that's not the best thing for you.
And they won't give you a business loan. At
Right, that's the
18
problem. That's
years
exactly
old.
right.
They won't say, "Hey, here's
Yep.
$10,000 for you to start this business with a business plan that's completely, 100% great." And they can
Yep.
start making money right away. But they'll give a $50,000 loan to an 18 and be like, "Good luck.
Yeah.
You got to pay it back or else."
Yeah, and you're going to pay it back. And even if the world falls out from beneath you, you can't get rid of this debt.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Wait, hold on.
Ball peen hammers.
I just had to look up what that was or what they
Wait.
are used for. I know what
We
it
didn't
is.
know what they were used
This
for.
is a ball peen hammer.
Yes.
This ball
Let
peen
me
hammer
see.
has sat on this table from the first show.
Let me see
So
it.
why what do you use the peen side for?
I don't know.
Peen.
Or the ball side? I don't know
Yeah.
what
Rocco.
side is what.
That's an awfully small peen. If I use for the peen, I don't think that's what it's used for. But I could be wrong. I've been
used
wrong
for
a lot in my life.
shaping metal. I just looked up on Google.
And fasteners.
Yes, and fasteners. Yes, exactly.
I don't know where to go with that, man.
Let's just leave it there. Just let it sit there. Let it marinate. Always
Let
come
it
back
peen
to it.
away.
Ball peen. It's like a little thing of my brother. He used to always make a laugh with a ball peen hammer. It's in high school, in wood shop or metal shop.
Yeah, I
or
use it
whatever,
in metal
like,
shop.
you know.
That was the only time I ever used a
We
ball
had a-
peen hammer in my life.
I
Oh,
don't
I get that
recall
ball peen
using
hammer.
it in wood shop or metal shop.
Ball peen. Everybody needs a good ball peen. So this has always been hanging around. And I don't. This isn't my brother's ball peen. That'd be kind of cool if I had something from way back that era. But no, this is
It
like
looks
a new
very
one.
archaic.
It is an older one. Yeah, I want. You know, it's funny. I was going to go buy the finest. I was going to look up online and buy the finest ball peen hammer that's available today. The finest. I mean, the finest quality wood. Just like
Well, you
because
got
I had
yourself,
nothing. Because I had nothing else to do with my money, right?
Yeah, why?
My gosh, you
The
definitely need
finest.
yourself a nice
The
one.
finest
I got
ball
some
peen.
swampland to sell you in Florida,
Yeah.
man. If you're looking for something to do with that money,
What money?
you were going to spend on the finest
On
ball
a
peen
peen.
hammer.
Yeah, well, like fine quality things, right? Okay, the next subject.
Yes,
We had a little technical difficulty here. My guests were very patient with me.
your guest helped you solve it.
They have to actually.
you have
my,
to give them
My
credit.
guests did solve it. Actually,
Yes, you must give them credit.
yeah, a lot of wires and stuff in here.
Good job,
Something was
Kelly.
bound.
Yes,
something
great
was
job,
bound.
Kelly.
Something was bound to go wrong. But mucho thanks. Yeah. So Rocco and I were talking about another subject on the show the other day, and it was one that I thought would be fantastic for this group and give us a chance to extrapolate in a more casual setting.
He's got the big words today.
Wow.
He uses a lot.
We're
of
very impressed.
Thank you. Thank you.
He gets to use 2 every radio show. Once
Yes.
he gets to 3, I'm like, dude, you gotta dumb it down a little bit.
Yeah, we're keeping score yesterday on who had the best ideas on the show, and I kind of lost that
2 to 1. 2 to 1.
Yeah.
The question
it
is, do
did.
you remember the number of
Yeah.
the radio station?
I do. Yeah, 1230 WBVP, 1460 WNBA.
I will never be the one saying that. I promise you that now.
You're more than welcome to take over that
No,
role.
no, you do it fantastic.
But anyways, okay. So the question we were bouncing around was, what are your thoughts on people who? There's a small portion of our society. Would you not agree? And if you don't, please tell me. That maneuver in society, and they're out there doing their thing, and they're very, very, very outwardly expressive of their politics. They're moving around in society with cars with political candidates' names on flags hang out the back, or they have got multicolored signs in their front yard. There's just a lot of people that wear it as a badge, more than I think in any time in history. I mean, I'm so old. I remember when politics was something you didn't talk about, and rarely would you hear it unless someone was coming around twice a year to get you to go vote. And they'd hand some annoying card in your face, right? But now it's like everywhere.
I have to say, yesterday, so I live in South Park, and I was leaving the park yesterday, and there was a gentleman on the corner on a pedal bike dressed as a colonial man.
Are you sure this is?
I swear, I can't make this up.
Wasn't that from a movie about a colonial man? There's like a joke. I think it was from Bridesmaids.
And he had like,
She couldn't make this up.
he had like 3 or 4 flags on a pole, and he was standing there and waving them. I mean, one was a Trump flag.
He's
Was
patriotic.
he a sign flipper?
No, he was not. I mean, it was on a pole. And I've seen him before because he used to be down in between like Baldwin and South Park. I swear I should have taken a picture. It's not the first time I've seen this gentleman. But I saw him yesterday and it was just like,
That's it.
all right,
That's
man.
from the plane on Bridesmaids. She's like, there's a colonial person on the wing.
She came out with that word colonial. Like, where's the word colonial come? You saying he was dressed with, like the 3-pointed hat and all that stuff?
Yeah, like head to toe, like the shoes, everything.
Revolutionary
The
War.
shoes.
era.
Fantastic.
That's interesting.
But
you
I
have to
thought-
take a picture next time.
Yeah,
Fantastic.
I mean, if I was going in the right direction, I probably would have stopped. But yeah, I was going to.
He was selfie worth. You could have got a selfie with him. I mean,
Man, I'm telling you.
Well, okay. So the point of this diatribe is: would you recommend that someone carry that political, unabashed, outward expressive stuff into their new business?
No.
Well, hold on. Well, we're going to get there because this gentleman across the table is not entirely with you there.
Yeah, I'm not entirely.
So it's my show, so I'll start off this time. I'm of the belief that I think authenticity is hugely important to me. But I do realize that there are slivers of our population on the far of both sides of the political spectrum that wear it as a badge and are almost militant about it in regards to their interactions with the public, friends, family, all of it, right? We all know people like this. Hopefully we don't know too many people like this, but we do know some. If this person or these kind of folks would seek your counsel in regards to starting a business, would you recommend to them that they take a self-evaluation of where they are and how they maneuver and suggest that maybe it's not a great idea to lead with that in their advertisement, in their general public impression of the business, public promotion, all that good stuff, and of course when they go to interact with their customers? My reason that I don't think it's always the best idea is that you are immediately eliminating half of the population of this country as potential in your client pool. Take your client pool, customer pool. If you're a plumber, the area pool, cut it in half. If you wear that expressive-ness like that, you may limit 50, 40, 30% of this, knock those people out of the realm. Again, it's not a lack of authenticity. I think it's practicality. If you want your business to survive, why would you do anything to possibly shun potential customers of any kind, especially at the beginning of the entrepreneur process? So I want Rocco to go last because he kind of disagrees. We're not in complete disagreement. We're kind of in disagreement.
Yeah, we're in disagreement, definitely.
I want to hear your disagreement.
Yeah, you will hear it.
'Cause I'll have an
If
argument.
you want to go, why don't you go second?
No. I will be an observer
Okay.
for the time being.
I will go to you this time.
Okay. So, one of my roles in my career is I run a chamber of commerce, and by bylaws, I am neutral, which I try to really very stick within those boundaries.
If I looked at your voter's card, does it say I?
Huh?
You don't have to tell me what it says, but does it say I?
Independent.
I'm not telling.
It doesn't say I.
Right.
I'm not saying.
So it doesn't say I, because if it did say I, you would say, of course it says I.
But that doesn't necessarily always matter either.
No.
Oh no!
It doesn't.
I'm just asking a question because
So
your
anyway.
bylaws are that you have to be a certain, but everybody has their own views, right?
So I'm very even topically careful. So
Okay.
hopefully I have friends of mine who I grew up with, and I had 2 girls that in high school we sat at Eaton Park like all the time, and I love them to death. I do. However, they talk politics all the time, and I mean I was glazed over. I was like, I don't care. I'm 17 years old. We're having coffee. I want to talk about whatever. That carried me through. That was so terrible at that point for me that I hate talking politics to this day. Like, if somebody sits me down and starts talking politics, I'm like, cut them off. I'm done. Like, I have my opinion. You have your opinion. Go have your opinion. But when I start seeing it show up on people's Facebook, people start like saying their opinion on social media, I mean, I snooze them. I can't. I'm like, please don't. Have your opinion for yourself. People get really fired up, and I understand that.
Do you snooze or do you unfollow?
Oh, I always snooze. I'm polite. They'll
You
talk
are
about
polite.
something else in 30 days, but I just don't want to deal with this person until this issue's done.
Yeah,
or whatever
I've
they're
never
fighting
snoozed
on.
anybody. I've unfollowed a hell of a lot of people, but I've never
I've
snoozed
snoozed
anybody.
quite a bit.
Really?
I have, yeah.
Maybe we should
No.
try that.
Yeah.
When it comes to businesses, I do know some businesses that have very loud opinions and agendas, and they let people know that. Mm-hmm. And that is all well and good. However, I do think that it does hurt their business. I mean, I've seen it hurt their business, so I can't say that I haven't in several ways. So I do think on a business ground, you should be more neutral. And personally, you can be politically however you want. But in your business, if you want more customers or you want, kind of to do well on one side versus another. I mean, I have to argue with people all the time because they always say I'm on one side or the other. And I'm like, I'm neutral.
Okay.
And so that's how I feel. Businesses should be neutral.
Kelly? Okay.
Kelly?
So every 6 months, I curate a girls' weekend. We go to Ogilvy. There's like 15 ladies that are there. I've been doing this for 2 years. So the very first one that we did, politics was a very hot topic.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew how most of the ladies, what fence they...
Which way they swung.
And when we first got there, I made an announcement. I was like, I don't care how much anybody drinks or whatever anybody does, but we're not talking politics at all. Because those weekends were supposed to be about just relaxing, having a good time, people bonding, having fun, and there wasn't supposed to be any kind of stress on these weekends. Everyone was getting massages and everything else. The last thing I wanted was to have someone come up there, there'd be arguments started, everyone's there for an entire weekend, so there's no escaping anybody. You're there for the whole time.
Got it.
And there were 2 people that were there that I knew what side they were on, and they're very passionate about it. And the other thing that we're not allowed to do is talk about business either, because it's not a business retreat. It is just a retreat to relax. And those 2 ladies were like, well, I'm allowed to have my opinion. Yeah, you are. And, honestly, I had the same opinion as they did, but I didn't want anyone uncomfortable about it. I also was going to keep doing these weekends, and I didn't want that to affect my business.
I'm very happy that I was not there on that first retreat.
No. But that's why we continue to have them, too. So sometimes I felt like I had to lay down ground rules for a business so that I could continue to have the same business. Now, in other instances, in other things that I do, people are allowed to have their opinions. And if they want to voice them, they can. But if it's their business and they choose to do that, that's fine. But if it's something that's going to be detrimental to their business, that's on them too. I mean, that's the nice thing about this country is that you have that ability. If you have a business and you want to fly whatever flag you're flying, no matter what it is, fly it. But you also have consequences. There's consequences to everything that you do. If you feel passionately about something and you want to let it out there, let it out. But, also be prepared to have what's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and again, before Rocco goes, because I know where this is going to go, I want to be very clear. I don't have any problem with anyone being authentic and letting it all fly. This is under the guise of someone asking me their thoughts on starting a new business. If you're an established business and you already have a customer base and you lean one way or another, no, not even lean, you're very much vehemently one side or the other, and it's a philosophical thing that you wear and you're comfortable wearing it out in public, and you've proven you've run a successful business. If you're willing to just only work with folks that are like-minded or seek those kind of folks out, God bless you. If you want to do that, fine. I'm just saying, as a new business person, I wouldn't suggest being so limiting from the get-go. It's all yours, pal.
Okay, so
Front of the microphone, buddy.
I'm in front of the microphone. We finally fixed the microphone.
We did.
You
To
were
Kelly
trying
fixed
to
the microphone.
silence me earlier.
Yeah, well, it's surprisingly clear, though. I mean, you
Yeah.
did a little test run over it. It came out great.
So I disagree. I think if you have viewpoints that you hold very strongly, you should. If you want to put those in the forefront of your business, that's your choice. And do I think it will impact you 50%? Absolutely not. Like I said yesterday, I believe it's the 10% on the fringe on both sides that are the vehemently opposed to the other side. I think 80% of America, we all have similar views. We just sit on one side or the other. And if someone was the opposite political bent than I am and use that at the forefront of their business, if they provided a good service or product, I would still buy it. It wouldn't prevent me from doing it.
I would like to counter your statement.
Please. Counter.
We just got it. So I know in particular a business that you have not gone to because of their political agenda and spoken about it very vocally, which I will not give the business name.
Okay. I'm trying to think who that would be. Is it a product or service I need or want?
Yes.
Oh, she's calling you out.
I mean,
I'm having a hard time, and I appreciate being called up. I'm having a hard time of thinking of what service or product this would be.
I mean, it's something you don't need all the time. You need occasionally. It's kind of a delight. But anyway, and I know a few people who feel that way about this particular business, so it's not just you.
I know the one you're talking about, and I still go there. I know exactly what you're talking about now. I go there and I have meetings there.
Well, I've heard you argue against it, so
I
guess
go
more
there out of necessity.
Necessity. Okay.
So, but that's what I'm
so
saying.
That's
so
the
it's
difference.
it is a place.
Product.
Yes, exactly. It is a place or will I choose to go there? Like if someone asks me to go there to meet, is that going to be the first place I choose? No. If someone says, "Hey, will you meet me there?" Sure.
Okay.
So
it's not your first choice.
It's not my first choice, but have I been there since I made those statements? Absolutely. I'm not and I'm vehemently opposed to the views this establishment puts out. I've still patronized the establishment out of necessity, not out of choice, out of necessity. So again, but that is also an established business. They made that choice, and I think they have lost business somewhat, but I still think they're just as busy as they have been. The point I try to make with this is, to me, it comes down to authenticity. If that is your authentic expression and you are very politically charged and you don't put that out, I think people will see through it. And I think you'll just be playing a game that will eventually end badly. That's just how I look at it. I just think that, especially in the world we live in today, that if you try and start a business by being inauthentic to what you believe in, I don't think people will connect with it in the long term. You might have some success up front, but is that really why you're starting the business? To be an inauthentic expression of yourself? Why would you do that?
Yeah.
And I think, too, it depends on the business, right? I mean, again, like we talked about yesterday, if you're an electrician or a service provider, if you provide a good service at the right price, I don't care what your political views are. But if you're a networking group or like kind of what you're both involved in, right, you have a position where you can't take a political view.
Sure.
That's totally different. I think that's where we have to make that distinction as well, where you've got to look at the actual type of business you're starting, right? If you're trying to create a group where you're trying to bring people together of all walks of lives, then taking a political stance to one extreme or the other is definitely going to make that more difficult.
Yes, I agree.
So I think it comes down to the type of business as well.
Yeah, that makes a huge difference.
Yeah, stumped.
Because you want everybody to feel included. You don't want to segregate your group at all.
Correct. And again, I still come down to the belief that the majority of us in America kind of want the same things. We just have a little different lens we see them from, be it left or right. It's the people that are the far fringe on the left and the right that are the ones that are the loudest. And are those people starting businesses? Most likely not. I just look at it differently.
Yeah, no, I get that. I struggle a lot with understanding why it's important. I mean, for the first 5 years of my real estate career, I was aware of my surroundings when I would go into a home, but I never really paid too much attention unless something was just so sort of Trump flag hanging in the front door when you walk in. Obviously, they're a Trump supporter, or vice versa. But the last 2 or 3 years, it's gotten so caustic that I've had clients, ask for, perform a litmus test on me. Well, who are you going for? I mean, and it's like, right out of the gate. And that just is so unseemly to me, because I can't imagine that my realtor services are better tuned for a liberal or a conservative or a Democrat or a Republican. I just don't see how that's relevant. And I can assure you, I don't care if you don't vote at all. It doesn't bother me at all.
Here's the other problem I see with politics, coming back to the place we are discussing, and this is the other issue I have, is I know people that know the owners of the establishment very closely. They are capitalist and conservative as can be, because it's about the money. That political position they took was because of the market they're in. So if you look at the demographic of where that is located, it is a more liberal demographic, and the majority of customers in that bent, and the people that work in that establishment, are very liberal. The owners, one of the owners in particular, is a capitalist conservative, and I know from a fact from a next door neighbor. So that's the problem I have too. They used a political agenda to kind of tailor to the customer base that was inauthentic, in my opinion. That's the other issue I have with that. And that's where I think a lot of people used the past 2 years, the politics of the past 2 years, to take a stance that might not have been authentic, but it's what they felt they had to do to appease the marketplace. And that's...
that went on for sure.
I do think the politics have gotten a lot louder. Now, in your industry, Eric, in real estate, if somebody has like a very loud political sign next door to the house you're selling, do you think that's affected your building?
That's a great question.
Yeah, that's a good question.
Yeah, it's there's been a couple instances where we've had some interesting circumstances like that, but I lump that in with just dealing with neighbors in general. I tell people, when you're buying a house, I can't in any way, shape, or form make reference to neighborhoods. It's not only is it not fair, it's not legal for me to do that. People have to make up their own minds what they want to do. And you can't pick your neighbors. Anybody can move in anywhere they want. That's the beauty of America, the freedom we have. And I can tell you for sure that there's been a couple buyers that I've gone around with that they had made comments about political affiliation, flags in neighborhoods and so forth. And I've sold a couple houses too where the sellers were very politically charged people, and they even though we were selling and listing the house, they, against my judgment, they still put political signs in the yard and did all that stuff. So again, it's a case-by-case basis. I just find it funny that it even matters as a context of doing business with me. I just find that fascinating, because I'm interested in politics. I think it's all kind of interesting and kind of funny, but I don't run my life according to what I see out there. I mean, I would not. I don't know. Maybe that's not true. Maybe if there was a business that was so left or so far right and so outwardly, it would almost I don't want to deal with that nonsense. I wouldn't even want the aggravation of going in and having to be inundated with all the crap. Maybe that's why I wouldn't go. But I don't know. I just think that people are parochial. We act like we're all these great, independent, free-thinking people, but in reality, we all have tribes, right? Everybody's got a tribe. You might not admit it, but you belong to multiple tribes.
Yeah.
So if it's a new business owner, I would just hate to see folks be so narrow-minded and lose out on the bigger client pool, especially in the beginning. It's so hard in the beginning. You want every piece of business you can get, and you just, case in point, why this came to my mind was I was in Erie last year, and I was someplace where it was last year. It was last year during election, and I saw that there was a guy had an HVAC company, and he had all this paraphernalia on the vehicle. It was Biden. There was all kinds of and all of liberal causes painted all over the vehicle and this and that. And it said in business since 2019. Established. No, it was only 2020, right? And I was just thinking to myself, man, I mean, that is just such a limiting way to start a new business. Wow. I mean, but it's ballsy because you're wearing your thing, but
here's the thing. Here's the flip side of that. I think that you So the people that tend to be the loudest on one side or the other don't want to do business with the people that are the loudest on. So they don't really give a shit. Like, they don't give a shit if that guy probably does not give a shit if he ever services a Trump supporter.
Yeah, that's probably strong.
I think that's a big, because people that are that vocal about their political views are going to be that vocal about not wanting to do business with people that have the opposing political view, and so they just don't give a shit. And that new business owner has to bake that into their analysis. Okay, when you're doing that initial planning and the analysis of what this is going to look like, you have to bake in that risk metric into that and understand, okay, if I go this way and that's who I am, this group over here, never going to do business with. They may not. Okay, cool. Don't give a shit. Move on.
Okay.
Because I think those are because the people that are the loudest on one side or the other absolutely fucking hate the people on the other side. And so those people don't want to pull. That HVAC guy does not want to pull into a driveway that has Trump signs in the front yard.
Obviously not.
Right. But so they don't really care if they're going to lose that business.
Yeah.
That's how I see it.
No, I mean, I understand the logic behind it. I of what they're doing. I don't know how wise it is.
I don't know, man. It's yet to be determined.
Like so much here.
Yes, absolutely.
What do you think is going to happen here within the next year? I don't mean politically, but just in the next year. The reason I say that is I'd like to ask about a 12-month window. And I'm not coming at it purely from a political standpoint, but I'm coming at it from, I think my personal opinion is we're coming out of COVID. I think we're finally kind of moving past it. I know there's factions of the population trying to that are still fearful and some justifiably so with conditions, and you have a sector of the population that's their philosophy is that the world scares them and everything scares them, so they're going to always be mask wearers and always looking down upon those who don't wear it. I get it, but I think generally the population is ready to move on.
Yes.
Do you think we actually get to move on? Do you think as this year goes, the understanding and the thought of the pandemic will start to ebb? And the reason I ask this question is because we're entering a political season, and that political season is going to keep the pandemic in the forefront of our brain, unfortunately, on the media, and because it's a political football, right? Mm-hmm. Do you think we're going to be able to get past, at least from the social conscious standpoint, or are we going to be dealing with the pandemic and the social conscience because of the politics of it for a long time?
I think every time we have mentioned the pandemic, it lasts a little longer.
The pandemic.
Pandemic here in Pennsylvania.
No, I mean, but that's actually a good point. I think the reason it's lasted as long as we keep talking about it. Like if I didn't know there was I live my life normally right now. Like if I wouldn't know there was a pandemic going on unless people talk about it. That's it. Mm-hmm. I've seen one person wear a mask in the past week, and that was at the gym, which I still can't quite figure out. But I think that the majority of America is way fucking past it, and the only way it's going to keep staying here is if the media keeps talking about it. That's my opinion.
Okay. Well, it's not going to go away because politicians are going to use it until all masks are gone, where there's nothing to argue about anymore. But as long as there's some folks masking, or some medical groups stating, or some cities still mandating certain aspects of society wear them, as long as that's still there, for as long as that goes on, it's going to be in the social conscious. Or if we get another variant.
There's always going to be another variant. The flu has a different variant every year. But even all the health fields and the doctors, they all make you wear masks still. I took my daughter to the doctor last week, and it was like, we're walking in, it was like, shit, I got to find a mask. I'm digging through my car to try to find a mask so that we can even enter the building.
Right.
All of the health fields. Yes, the airplanes are just now saying you don't have to wear one, and everyone's taking them off like they're burning bras. But,
yes,
that's fantastic.
But the doctor's offices, they're still making you wear them. So as long as you still see people in masks, it's never going to go away as far as people thinking about it.
Well, I know, like my dentist and Laura just went to the dentist. Neither one of our dentists required masks anymore. Now our kids' dentist still does, we believe, But like my dentist did not require a mask. Now people came in and wore masks. They had them in the lobby, but I didn't have mine on, and no one said a word to me. And there was, I think on the door it said we recommend wearing a mask, but it's not required. So I think it depends on the service provider too. I think I know at least the circles I'm in, the pandemic's over. You know, and most people I deal with, no one's even thinking about it at all.
Well, I mean, the Pirates are playing a baseball game down there, and there might be a couple thousand people there, but it's still a couple thousand people,
right?
And they're maneuvering around, and I mean, you turn on. I think NASCAR is going to have a huge race today or tomorrow. Today, I think, in Talladega, and I guess there's going to be thousands and thousands and thousands of people there. It isn't easy. It isn't. Excuse me. It is not hard to see that we've moved past the fear, at least, anyways, because.
Look at Coachella's happening right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's one of the biggest things happening.
And I was on the tay, as Rocco calls it.
The what?
I told him I'd never let this go. So I'm like, I have these tickets to the Pirates game. I'm going to meet with their salesperson for maybe do an event there this summer. I was like, my friend Jen and I are going to take the T. And he's like, oh, you're going to take the tay. And I was like, what?
No, you have to give context.
Yeah, why can't you guys pronounce anything right?
No.
Basil. What's happening?
He popped his head up and said,
train.
No,
T.
So please, everybody call it the tay.
We were in the conference room. I was reading an email, and someone else was coming in to talk to me, and Mandi was also telling a story. So I had three things in my head at the same time, and I happened to say tay instead of tea because I think I was thinking of a different word that I was going to say to the person who was walking in the room, but I was just responding to you because you were looking at me talking. So I'm like, oh, the tay. I'm like, no, the tea. So
Rocco
I
can't
do
judge
know. I do know how to pronounce.
But you do have to wear masks on those still. You should.
I thought the Port Authority just got rid of that rule.
It was still up. I mean, when we went on the tay.
The tay.
I mean, personal opinion. Are you ready for it to be gone?
Oh, yeah.
You're ready for it to be gone. No, you're not.
They took it off the daycare, which was like the last. Like, they've been off for a while, but daycare just took it off like a month ago. So, we keep getting illnesses.
So now we can look back 2+ years, right? So, Rocco was on my show early on, and we had talked about how this was kind of unprecedented in the last century anyways.
Yeah. And
there was no clear delineation on how we mobilize as a country to combat a threat. Really, there isn't, because the feds won't talk to the state won't talk to the county governments never talk to the city governments, and the local governments just, who knows, right?
Right.
So there's no real chain of command or any kind of cohesion. Do you think we've learned anything? Do you think that the governing bodies have learned anything? I mean, I don't mean the politicians, right? Because the politicians, I think the good men and women who actually employ the positions in all these government agencies on all different levels, those are the workers. That keeps the machine of government going. It's not the politicians. But do you think we've got any kind of synergies? Can you take any positive out of anything you've seen with this pandemic and how it was handled?
Well, I mean, I work with a lot of municipalities and boroughs and townships. And, at the start, I immediately got in with them and the politicians and to get word out as fast as possible. Like, this is happening. You need to do this. If you need a business loan, this is how you do it. Here's what's going on. And I went township and borough one after another saying, here's the updates. Here's the updates. Get it in front of as many people. Send out. We had our own list of things to do with COVID. So I think now that we did have COVID, should hit the fan. Sorry, I swore.
That's what we do.
I do think we'll have at least like, oh, okay, this is how we did it last time. This was the most effective method of getting information out aside from the news, because each community is going to be so different the smaller you break it down. Now, do I think there's holes across all of this going up and up and up? Absolutely. I still think that it's going to be, if something were to happen, especially if that something were through technology. I mean, that's one thing that's new is technology and how that's going to change things. Should somebody put an attack on us, or, from that perspective, I think there's still going to be some gaps in there because we haven't dealt with it. Like, this generation hasn't really dealt with it on a big scale attack ever.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's so funny over there? It's a pandemic, for fuck's sake.
It is funny because here's why. It was a missed opportunity for government to figure out how to work together. I think this was the perfect opportunity for synergies to be created, efficiencies to be created between state and federal government, between local and state government. The problem was it was used as a political ploy. That's
football.
That's football. Yes, people use this on both sides as a political football, and that's all, and we as Americans suffered because of that. Do I think COVID was bad? Yes. Do I think it was made worse than it really is? Absolutely. Do I think the government had any fucking idea what they were doing? Absolutely not. I think they would have had got a lot more respect from the American people if they would have just said, we don't fucking know. Bear with us. Let us figure this out. This is a 100-year pandemic. But they
what's wrong with that, really?
Because they again, it's politics, right? Each side had to say, we know how to solve this. We are certain. We're going to crush COVID. We're going to do this. And nothing worked.
Yeah.
Let's be honest. Nothing worked. Lockdowns didn't work. The vaccines didn't work. Masks didn't work. I mean, the shit's still here. People still get COVID. I mean, I know more people that have gotten COVID recently that are vaccinated and boosted than people that aren't vaccinated. I know people that wear masks all the time and got COVID, and people that didn't wear masks and didn't get COVID. So nothing that you can say they did actually worked. And if someone could point to data that say it did, data's manipulated. I mean, think about it. Look at all the data that came out from the CDC and how manipulated it was.
Yeah.
So do I think the government missed an opportunity to actually be better? Absolutely. And that's the unfortunate part of all this, because this was the perfect opportunity for both sides of the aisle to work together and solve a crisis.
And instead of coming together, they caused more division.
Exactly right. They made the crisis worse. That's exactly right. And it was all about dividing America. And that's what it did. I mean, look how fucking... If you look back on the past 2 years, we lost our collective minds.
No question.
Like, people get, like, still to this day, like, I saw a meme the other day, and it's so true. It said people were losing their minds because they lifted the mask mandate on airplanes.
Right.
And the guy's position was, he's like, if masks fucking work, you can still wear yours. So, like, why are you pissed at if masks work and protect you? Just wear yours. Like, why are you losing your mind over this? But again, because we've drilled it in people's heads that no, everybody has to wear masks for them to work. Like, that's like, I have allergies right now, but my allergy medicine only works if you guys all take your allergy medicine. That's the same fucking logic, and it doesn't make sense.
Well, plus everything changed. I mean, Fauci
Yes.
changed his mind all the time. It was like one day it worked, the next day it didn't. Oh, wait, yeah, it does work again.
Yes.
So, I mean, I think there was a lot of confusion towards the American public, and it was from so many different avenues.
Yes.
And it was like every month there was something different. I was like, okay, so do I use toilet paper today or do I not use toilet paper today? I mean, what am I wiping my ass with? I mean,
I remember getting toilet paper in the parking lot from one of my friends who she had an inside track to get. Literally, I'm not even joking. The beginning of the pandemic, and if she's listening, she'll know I'm referring to her. I met her in the parking lot of LA Fitness because her friend works at like CVS or right.
She had the TP hookup
and was able to get a ridiculous amount of toilet paper. I'm like, we don't have any, and we can't get any. Can I get some from you, please? And literally met her in the LA Fitness parking lot to get toilet paper. That's how fucking crazy the world was.
I had a girlfriend who was stocking up on bleach. I'm like, please tell me you're not drinking this. And she was just cleaning her house with bleach, top to bottom, all the time.
I mean, we were cleaning our groceries off.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like, when looking back, like, are you fucking kidding me? Like,
Well,
what were we doing?
in the beginning, we didn't know if it was surface related, which
True.
was the most horrifying
Yes.
thing imaginable, that if it was surface related. And then we spent all this time maneuvering as if it was surface related and spent all this money on cleaning supplies and time and effort cleaning. And to be told, it's not really, it's airborne. It's really not, nothing to do with surfaces.
Yes.
Don't walk behind somebody on the trail unless you're 6 feet behind.
Which, again, how's that even make sense? Like, think about
who
that.
came up with the 6 feet rule?
Right. Again, exactly. And that's the whole problem with this. It was...
And then it was actually reduced to 3. Now it's just 3 feet.
Right. Then
Well, the
14
most-
was
well, the most
14 to 10 to 5.
Well, the most ridiculous thing was, you have to look back at it now. It's so sad and pathetic, but you have to look back on it now and find some humor in it. Like we were not allowed to eat inside, so we created a tent environment outside, which emulated being inside. But because you're actually outside, you could actually go there and eat, but you had to wear a mask.
I've never seen so many loopholes
So you
in my
weren't
entire life.
inside, but they created an indoor environment outside,
So you could
that
eat
you
it.
could go there because you could, but you still had to wear a mask. So,
That was the stupidest
or else you
thing.
could go into, once we did open up, you could go into a restaurant, a group of 4, and you walk with your mask and around,
Yeah.
and then you get to the table. Everybody takes their masks off. Like somehow around the table, the coronavirus was not permitted to come in
Yeah.
to the
No.
eating area.
Yes.
But everybody was coughing and eating and yeah.
I'll tell you what, in Pennsylvania, the coronavirus was completely different than it was in West Virginia.
No question.
It was
And
totally
very,
different.
Very different than in Ohio and New Jersey and
I
New York.
crossed the border to go to West Virginia to get alcohol because we were running low in Pennsylvania. You can only get so much, so we were like bootleg. We were going across to West Virginia and stocking up on Tito's and Crown and everything else and put it in the back. And even then, there was lines outside, and you had to be 6 feet apart. But then when you go to a restaurant, you were fine in there.
Yeah.
They didn't have masks, they didn't have anything else.
Yes.
And so then we crossed back over into Pennsylvania, and it was like as soon as you crossed that border, it was like, oh, hold on. What's going on? There's more coronavirus in here than there is in West Virginia.
Yeah.
So, I mean, even in our country, in different states, it was different.
Yeah. And that was the problem with it. There was no consistency. Because I remember the same thing with West Virginia. I remember, like, when restaurants opened back up, like, in the beginning of the pandemic, just driving to West Virginia to go to this Mexican restaurant just because we could fucking eat and drink and not wear masks. It was like,
That's exactly
it
what we
was like
did.
tasting freedom.
We're like, margaritas, let's go.
like 3 o'clock on a Wednesday, like, let's just fucking go because it's like freedom. I just wanted to be around people and be able to not have to, like, worry about these rules and restrictions. And that was the problem. It was just, it was too, disconnected, disjointed. I mean, there was no cohesive response. There was nothing that really worked. And then we kept just trying to do the same things over and over again, but just more strict. I'm like, this does not work. Like, I believe as Americans and as human beings, we want to do what's right. We're inherently born good, and we want to do what's best for all.
Sure.
When we're given the true story. That's why I said if they would have from the beginning said, hey, this is new, we don't know what to do, we're going to try different stuff, bear with us. I think the majority of Americans would be like, yeah, we get it. Like, this is scary.
Well,
we
that
don't
would truly
know.
be in there together then, right? We would
Correct.
feel we were all in it together.
The problem was, it was like, hey, we got to do this. This is going to work. And okay, let's lock us down for 14 days. Okay, let's this will go away. Then it was like 30. Then it was this. And then people just said, no fucking way. Like, you can't tell us what to do anymore. And that's when I think people started losing their shit. When the government kept telling us what to do, changing the rules, and not putting any logic or reasoning behind the changes. People just woke up and said, you know what? We're Americans. Like, you can't tell us. We'll do what's right until we believe you don't know what's right. And that's what happened.
So do you think if the COVID pandemic ramps up again or a new one comes in or something, do you think we should all just gather in a gymnasium, write everybody's name down, cough, converse, and then see who gets sick and doesn't? So then you would know. You'd say, is this really as bad as it is, or is it just...
Well, wait, no. Okay, let's
Not-
debate
You know
what I
that.
mean?
That's
Like,
a little
so-
extreme.
You lost
I'm
it.
just saying,
so what are you? So what
it's
are
a
you?
hypothetical.
So what are you saying? So what are you saying that I
So
believe?
rather than trusting news or government, would you gather up 300 of your closest friends, family, say, bring somebody, we're going to let 300 people in today and see
No,
what
I
happens?
think you let people live how we normally would. If you feel sick, stay the fuck home.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not going to say, oh, the pandemic's here, let's all go get in a gym and cough on each other and see who gets it. You wouldn't do that with the flu. It's just, when you tell people to lock down and clean your groceries and do all this shit, none of this works, no one's going to put up with that again. I can tell you
Yeah.
that right now. It's like, if another thing like this happens, do what you're supposed. You're supposed to fucking wash your hands. You're supposed to not cough on people, right? I don't get close. I'm not a close talker where I'm going to come and talk and my spit's going to be on you.
Some people are, though.
But I'm saying, these are common decency things that we should be doing as Americans. The fact that we have to tell people that is the problem. And that's what I'm saying. Let people live their lives. If I'm sick, I stay home. I don't go around people until I feel better.
All right. So, man, so when this first happened, I always do like girls' things and girls' nights out and whatever else, right? You've been to a few. When this first happened, I was like, all right, all my girlfriends are like, let's go out. But we couldn't go anywhere. So I invited everybody to my house and I said, it was nice out. So I said, we'll have it in my backyard. So I have like all these woods in the back. It's quiet. No one will bother us. And my driveway is really large. So I got all these tables and I put them all 6 feet apart like I was supposed to. Yeah. Tons of alcohol, put it all, all over the place, had food all over the place, had everything covered up. There was about maybe 20, 25 women that came, right? Some ladies said, I'm not comfortable. Totally fine with that. 25 women came. I had chairs everywhere. Everybody ended up around one table.
Yep.
Nobody wanted to be 6 feet apart. Nobody wanted to actually.
Well, it's not within human nature for us to be that far apart. Right. And I will say, I went into Cozza Law Group, and my, the chamber wasn't having events, so I was partially furloughed there, and I went into Cozza Law Group in 2021, right?
It's like December of 2020, I think you started.
December 2020. And we were in person, and there was 4 of us then, right? Yeah. 4 of us. We were in person. We sat there, and it was such a relief to sit there and be able to just talk like normal people, have a social life, because my assistant and I at the chamber were like swapping out days. So no regrets, because I think it was a great thing for everybody just to be able to socialize, even if you're keeping it small. And, if you feel sick, don't come in, obviously.
Right.
But... I think by human nature, you cannot separate people like they did. Like, there's no way.
Let me turn the direction a little bit. What's depressing for me was I really thought like our CDC, the medical professionals within our government, I really was the one thing I thought was never political. And I also thought going in, I wanted to really believe in these should be non-political and amazingly talented folks. They come in, serve a couple years, and they go back into the private sector. That's what I would hope would happen. But when you would see the CDC and some of the other medical institutes associated with the government become weaponized for one side or the other, it really is disheartening, because now as a citizen out there just maneuvering through your day, you don't really know who you can look to get the straight story. And it's one thing about getting a straight story about a political issue, but when it comes to a freaking worldwide pandemic, you need to be able to get the straight story. And not having that is unsettling. It's a shame.
That was the problem. And again, from the beginning, like I really liked Fauci in the beginning. I'm like, okay, he's a calm voice of reason.
It was initially.
And then, exactly. Then I realized that it was just getting politicized. And the story kept changing. The advice kept changing. But there was no real logic as to why. It's just like, I'm Fauci, listen to me.
Right.
Like, that's it. Just because I'm him.
Right.
And that's when I started losing respect for him. But there was a whole bunch of other shit going on at the time and other things being said, but I really wanted to believe him. I really wanted to like him. I really wanted to believe in what he was doing for the country until I started seeing it go a different way. And that's just, I think as people, we have to make our own decisions.
Yeah, and that brings the broader point about taking your own health into your own hands, and because a portion of the society was willing to basically agree with anything that Dr. Fauci or that group would put out as being gospel. I don't believe anyone is going to tell me anything that I'm going to believe is gospel. I mean, I might believe there's a high probability they're right. I would hope in those circumstances, right?
Yep.
But if this pandemic taught anyone, if they're paying attention, is that we can't really put our faith, trust in anything government related or anything in society in general. Have an open mind, and it doesn't mean you have to spend your every day questioning everything that comes your way. Pick and choose. But man, I mean, to not be able to really do your own due diligence on your health, that's a shame, man. And we realized we needed to do that. As we move through this pandemic, we need to start being skeptical and start saying, hey, we're being told all these things, but is that really reality, right? And that's a shame that it had to be that way when it comes to your health as an American citizen. But that's kind of where we are now. You don't know what the hell to believe. That's crazy. With medicine, with medical procedures, with anything health related. Why is that one bastion of our society so damn turbulent? That should be the one rock, the foundation of our society.
It's because of money.
But is anybody doing the due diligence to find out more? Like, is anybody reading into these medical guides and these, periodicals and stuff that's actually breaking this down for other doctors and finding out, some of the realities? Or are we just saying, well, we don't know what to believe what's on TV, but I'm going to go back to watching TikTok? Are we doing our due diligence?
I think we're numb.
Too?
Well,
some are, some aren't.
The problem with this country is we practice sick care. That's what we do. We have a pill for everything. Instead of practicing preventative wellness, we preach sick care in this country because the pharmaceutical industry has a ton of money, and that's what they do. And that's why not one time during the pandemic were we talking about wellness. When we knew if you were overweight or diabetic or had heart issues or COPD or were a smoker, you were at high risk to die from COVID. We weren't talking about that. We weren't talking about, hey, you should take your own health into your own hands. It was like, we can vaccinate you. We can do this. We can do this. These people should wear masks. We should do this. We should, that to me was the biggest miss in this whole pandemic. And that just showed me what matters in this healthcare system. It's about money.
Yeah. Well, and they didn't give you alternatives. They weren't like, hey, we know you can't go on trails because a lot of them are closed. So instead, do this. Or
Yes. Why do we close down gyms? Why did we close down gyms?
There's a lot of stuff at gym. I mean, the gyms, I still wipe everything down.
Yeah, but you can do that. But
people
I
are
think,
gross. I mean, especially when they're working out. They don't care. They're like...
This is how... I said this in the office last week. I said, this is how I know the pandemic is over. Because now when I go to the gym and I go into the men's restroom, most guys don't wash their hands anymore. They just leave.
Gross. See, exactly.
That's how I know the pandemic is over. Because
so wrong.
If 10 guys walk in the bathroom, 7 of them just kind of look at. They'll run their hands in the water real quick and leave. I'm like, that's not really doing anything.
I do belong to the same gym, and
I could have did without knowing that.
Yeah, I don't go to gyms for
I know
that reason.
I wash my hands whenever I come back
Continue to
down.
wipe down the machines like you do.
I do. Fun. I spray. I wipe after. I wipe before.
So I'll share this with you. When the pandemic started for me, and Rocco knows this story, I just decided that I gotta use this. I knew I was gonna be out of work for a while. You could see it coming. Real estate was gonna get shut down. You just knew it. And I said, thankfully there's a little money in the bank. I said, for whatever happens, I'm going to figure this out, but I'm not going to lay on my ass. So I wanted to try to work on my own health because I figured, mid-50s. I'm not crazy about vaccines and all that stuff anyways. I knew it was coming. It's a matter of time. But let me see if I can fix my own health. So I went out walking every day. The point of this is when I would walk outside, it was amazing because first off, nobody was out really, and the ones that were the hardcore people were saying, fuck you to the government, right? Okay, I appreciate that. So, but what happened was over the course of 4 or 5 months when we started living with COVID, more people would come out. And I was walking the Montour Trail initially in my little journey, and they started to get more crowded. But what I noticed was it was full of masked people, masked humans.
Yes.
Power walking outside in the woods. And I was not. I was never masked the moment I went out that door from the beginning of the pandemic to back to go exercise by myself. I started getting vitriol from people because I wasn't masked. I mean multiple times. I don't care about the bad looks and things, but when they say something to you, then you're trying to get my attention, right? I just would go home and say, this is insane. And then I started walking late at night on State Avenue down in my hometown. That was my thing because there was no one around then, right? But I couldn't believe that we would some folks would throw hate on others wearing a mask outside by themselves.
Same thing happened to me.
Unbelievable. That showed a lot of where we were headed.
My music was very loud in my earbuds whenever I was walking because I don't care. And I could hear or see. I just smiled and kept walking.
So I lived off the trail, so I was always used to be up there. But when the pandemic first started, there's this cat, name is Angel. Very sweet cat. Everybody pets the cat. Everybody knows the cat in the neighborhood, right? She's just around.
Is this a real cat?
It is a real cat.
Not a fake cat.
Not a fake cat. So everybody pet this cat. And like, it's like the beginning of the pandemic. And I'm like telling my kids, I'm like, maybe we shouldn't pet Angel today. Let's just get, and now I'm like, that was probably over the top, but everybody was talking about hands and everybody's touching the cat.
For sure.
And the cat's like
For sure.
loving it. And I'm like, yeah, just don't. We'll just go over here. So I don't know if I was over the top, but I mean, people, the trails get pretty congested in certain spots. And like, I get it.
You get it?
That way. But I mean,
I just saw people
In the
do
beginning.
You're outside.
well, in the beginning, though, like the news media was driving this fear. So, it was a little scarier. And then I think everybody loosened up. And I probably haven't worn a mask. 'Cause,
Oh, no, I'm not shaming
been a
anybody. I
while.
just couldn't understand it. What I could not believe that someone, number one, cared that I was by myself. And I couldn't believe that someone would care that I am by myself, power walking on a trail, and I didn't have a mask on, that someone would care about me and my decision to do that. That was mind-numbing to me. But then to take offense by it was unbelievable.
The worst thing I saw, and one, I'm not an outdoors person, so I went on a trail once with wife and kids and went hiking, and it was the worst experience of my life. Stuck in mud. That's besides the point.
Yeah.
We got lost.
Yeah.
My youngest daughter, Malia, and I were just
Being in the
we were
woods,
losing our shit.
camping, all that shit's
However,
no good.
what was the worst part is I remember walking on the trail, and then when there were people coming towards us, people would hide behind trees.
What?
Like they literally, we were walking. They instead of like moving, they just literally went behind a tree and like turned their body away from us. I'm like, did you think
That's
like we just have
fantastic.
coronavirus like
Rocco,
floating
I
around
hate to
us?
say this,
That is
but it has nothing to
fantastic.
do with the
I
pandemic. They were like, oh, look who's coming.
I'm a repulsive person. I get it, but
Yeah.
it blew my mind. Like they literally went and like walked behind a tree. I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, we're walking past you on a trail. We're outside.
Oh, yeah.
I'm gonna have maybe 3 seconds where I'm near you,
Yeah.
and you like literally went and hid behind a tree.
I've
until we
seen
went
people
by.
walk in mud puddles and stuff purposely just to get out of the way. Like they would walk
It
on the
was
dirt on the side.
ridiculous.
It's like, because I'm not going to dirt. So if you expected me to move out of the way for you, I'm not doing it.
Well, it
That's
should
how I
teach
was.
everybody humility.
Because I was
You
walking in
think.
South Park on their trails, and it was the same thing. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, this is ridiculous.
Well, and look, and where I was required to wear a mask, I followed all the laws. I did what I had to do, but I'm not saying I liked it. And when it came to being outside, like, and then for a period of time, I think, I don't know if Pennsylvania put it into enactment or but I know New York did. They were thinking about saying you were only allowed to leave your house to go walking, or like there was only certain activities you were allowed to do. And I think New York and California at some point limited how many times during the day you could do that. You're only allowed to leave your house once per day to go running, and only for an hour.
I don't remember that.
I don't remember that either.
Yeah. California for sure did that. I think San Francisco had that. I don't
No,
think
Australia
I don't
had
think
that.
I don't think anybody paid attention to it, but
Yeah, I remember Australia had that big, and they had drones flying around, like when people were leaving their house, like if they were outside.
look at what
doing something
China's
they
doing
wouldn't be
now. Have you
doing.
seen any of that? What China's
Oh,
doing
yeah,
right now?
It's insane. It's
I mean, that's so
completely crazy.
draconian.
Yeah.
Where China is, I believe they're locking people in their houses.
yeah.
What?
Right now
Yeah.
in China. I think it's just in Beijing, but
Yeah, I
they're-
heard that too.
They're locking
Yeah.
people in their houses, and there's just some really horrific looking squads of government personnel that are just enforcing this. It's
Yeah.
not real pleasurable.
But they wore masks before the pandemic.
Yeah.
They did. They did. My wife's a flight attendant, so she's seen like the mask wearing going on for the last decade. And I always thought it was kind of like I think in Japan it is also I think it became some kind of fashion statement long before our pandemic. But they were.
My mask is not fashionable.
I'm just saying. I think the
Fine,
mask.
but
I think
not
the mask.
fashionable
I think
at
the
all.
mask wearing was part of the whole stick, so to speak. But I don't know. I would hope that we would be a little more civil with each other this next time around, because there's probably going to be another time.
I think people are going
Let's
to be more
hope not,
rebellious
man.
the second time around.
I
what?
agree with that.
They're going to be like, yeah, all right, well.
yeah, not going to do it.
Yeah.
Well, the danger is that what you just said. Like now we're in a position where we don't believe anything that comes from our government agencies, and that's not healthy either. I mean, I think about we're in a time of war right now as we're filming this, Ukraine and Russia, right? Well, if the government keeps lying to us and we keep pushing back and not believing it anymore, what if we're getting invaded?
Yeah.
I mean, you can make the argument without going down a deep rabbit hole that our borders are open, like people just flocking in from Mexico without any kind of vetting.
Yeah.
So that's kind of a passive invasion. But I mean, if we were militarily being attacked in some way, and they tell us, and then we don't believe it. I worry about stupid stuff like that. I mean, if something very terrible was headed our way, very terrible, and very quickly, would we mobilize? Would we do what we need to do to protect ourselves and our family? And because I think we're so callous in our beliefs because they've lied to us so often, or at least misinformed us so often.
The boy that cried wolf.
I think so.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
I think so. I don't know. I don't know. It's a shame.
We're fucked.
We can't end on a note like that, man. Come on,
man,
dude.
I told you, I'm getting out all the
thank
curse
you.
words.
No,
Getting
man.
them out. No, we're not. No, I think again. I think the.
No one's gonna watch us.
Look, I think I would say I think the pandemic taught us a lot.
that's
It
funny.
exposed a lot in this country. I think it was an opportunity for people to learn and grow and become something different or become someone different if you took advantage of it. And I think I'm an optimist by nature, so I do look at the world from rose-colored lenses, I guess I would say.
Okay.
So I do believe we are on the right path. There's a lot of things wrong in this country. There's a lot of fucking amazing things in this country.
No doubt.
And I think if it's what you want to see.
I would really like to, people talk about all the things that that happened to them during COVID and negatives. Like, I want to find the pocket of the community that had a great COVID. Like, it was the best time of their lives. They spent it. I want to hear the stories, like what they did, how they changed their lives, like all of that. I think that would be great.
I mean, I hate to say it because it was horrible for so many people, but COVID was really good for me.
Ugh,
Yeah.
you're lucky.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have to say the same for me.
Yeah.
I'd have to say, the health journey for me, the amount of shows that I was able to do, grow the podcast and all the enjoyment of doing that, and quite frankly, it's kind of weird, but having more time with my kids. I mean, to have my kids don't live with me full time, but they were in school at the time, but to have my daughter come down and hang out for a week or two and work remotely from home, it wasn't great for her, but it was fantastic to see my kids. So a lot of personal stuff I can look back and say, this was not that bad of a time. Yeah. It was a miserable time that we all had to go through. And I lost very good friends to the disease. I mean, it definitely is a real thing, without a doubt. But in terms of, can I look back at that time being a waste in my life? I would say no.
Yeah, I agree. I made sure not to let that happen. I didn't want to look back and think, oh man, I should have did this, I should have did that. I tried to do the best I could with what we had, and I did that. I actually made some really great friends. We had our little bubble that we had, and I
You didn't have a good time?
so much.
Huh?
You didn't have a good time?
I had a horrible time.
Really?
Yeah.
That's really honest.
Worst COVID ever.
Only COVID in your life, I hope.
Yeah.
Let's hope so.
Worst pandemic imaginable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are
No, I
you, are
ended
you
up-
better on the recovery now? Or are you kind of
Yeah, things are looking up somewhat. I would think. So, I mean, I did get
I mean, you're
did get the
here.
COVID this year. So, like 2 months ago,
Uh-huh.
I had a whole day of illness, but I felt pretty tired for like a week after.
Yeah.
It sucked. I will
Yeah.
tell you, it sucked.
Yeah.
It was a multi-week thing for me. Knocked me in December out of commission, which sucked. So yes, it's real. I would never dispute that it isn't real. I mean, look at the deaths. I mean, it was very real. I think how we mitigated it and how we dealt with it as a society sucked.
Yep.
And I think in some ways we made it more horrifying to the public and for the purpose of scaring people. I think that was ridiculous. But at the same time, I hope that as a society we've grown from this, because we're going to encounter, if it isn't a pandemic, it'll be something else. And we're going to need to be able to work together a little better than we have. But man, this was just not handled correctly.
No.
it's a big failure. I mean, they could write. I'm sure it'll happen. There should be books written about this, like from
sure there will be
from a
a million
leadership
books.
standpoint, from a failure standpoint. That, and again, I'm sure they can be sensationalized. Everybody likes bad news, but ultimately, there's got to be a shit ton of lessons in this.
Boy, what a novel
There's
idea,
lots of
writing a
lessons
book.
in this. I will say that.
I appreciate you all doing this.
It was a
We're
blast.
all over the board here today.
Thank you,
what we
Mr.
do
McKenna.
here. But this is and sorry for the technical aggravation, but we're hopefully the audience won't hear much of that aggravation. But we're still working the bugs out, the kinks out.
Yeah,
But it's good to be sitting down doing shows again.
absolutely. Good
Always a
blast.
pleasure.
Always.
Thank you. Your first, but definitely not your last visit here.
Fantastic. I'd love to come back. Had a good time.
All right.
Good.
All right, guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
We're out.